Intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting.
Fasting and intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting has gained massive amounts of attention over the last decade. But what is it? How is it supposed to work? And is it the best option if you want to make fat melt off your body? Well, over the last 10 years, working with thousands of women, I've learned the exact activities and lifestyles of those that achieve the best results and those that stay stuck with excess body fat. And in this video, I'm going to explain everything that you need to know about intermittent fasting in 6 key points. Key point number 1, what exactly is intermittent fasting? I can tell you right now, it's not a magic fix. It's simply a pattern where you alternate between eating and fasting. Most people give themselves eating windows. The most common, 16 hours fasted, 8 hours fed, but there's multiple different variations of this. But intermittent fasting, IF for short, isn't some trend that started on Instagram. IF's roots go way back in human history when food wasn't always available on demand. Fasting naturally happened in that time frame, and now science shows that it can offer some metabolic perks. However, it can also work against you, and we're gonna dive into both scenarios. The science behind IF is that it helps to reduce your insulin levels during fasted periods, which in theory, encourages your body to tap into fat stores. And I hear so many reasons as to why people swear by intermittent fasting. But here's the thing, and I hate to burst your bubble, but there's not one single thing that intermittent fasting does for you that eating in a calorie deficit, losing body fat, wouldn't do for you. But Nicole, it's detoxing my body. Yeah, that's what your liver and kidneys are for. But Nicole, it's fixing my insulin resistance. You wanna know what else fixes your insulin resistance? Proper nutrition, losing body fat, and adding muscle to your frame, which can be achieved by a calorie deficit. But Nicole, autophagy. You wanna know what else promotes autophagy? Your nutrition and your training, which again can be achieved by a calorie deficit. Which leads me right into point number 2. The only way that intermittent fasting works for fat loss, notice I didn't say weight loss, for fat loss, is if you're in a calorie deficit eating enough protein. I'm sorry, but fasting Felicia doesn't come and sprinkle her fairy fasting dust on you and you only eat within these magical windows and you biohack your way into being a fat burning machine. It does not work that way. You can restrict your eating window all day long, but if you're over consuming calories in your fed state, you will gain body fat. And believe me, I've pulled countless women out of this rut, even women only eating 1 meal a day. It is so much easier than what anybody wants to give it credit to sit down in 1 meal period and consume thousands of calories if you don't have awareness around your intake. If you are going to implement intermittent fasting, you still need structure, you still need strategy, you still need a plan. Which leads me into point number 3. Let's chat about some pros to fasting. When you understand fasting and you have a strategy for your goals, your body, your metabolism, it can provide structure. And I'm talking meal timing. If you're somebody who thrives off of structure and set schedules, this can provide some comfort. It can also be a really helpful tool in a calorie deficit. I am a volume eater. I need large meals to keep my belly happy and satiated. So if I can push my first meal back to have larger meals and stay within my calorie deficit, I am all freaking for it. It can also work really well for those who are just not breakfast eaters. Now here's the thing, even given all of these pros, none of this matters if you're not eating within your calorie deficit, consuming enough protein, training in a way that supports your goals, and prioritizing rest and recovery. Which leads me to point number 4. I want to talk about the cons of fasting and where so many struggle, which ends up taking them in the ass backwards direction of their goals. I have helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women out of the fasting rut, and every single one of them have the same exact story. What starts in a 16-8 eating window ends up with them eating 1 meal a day. Why? Because the scale stops moving. And every single time the scale stops moving, you reduce your eating window even more. So my challenge here is, where do you go after you're only eating 1 meal a day? Are you just gonna eat every other day kind of concept? Let's also talk about the fact that most can't even consume enough protein in a normal eating window, let alone a restricted one. And if you're in a calorie deficit, not eating enough protein, you're losing muscle mass, which is again taking you in the ass backwards direction of your goals. You end up looking like a melted freaking candlestick, and this is where downregulation of metabolic, hormonal, and biofeedback markers happen. And this is exactly why you're constantly dieting with no results to show for it, and fat loss feels fucking impossible. People think the magic is in the eating window, and the reality is the magic is in the calorie deficit that fasting can put you in. But I also want to call out the elephant in the room here, and so many people don't want to talk about this, but your fasting is leading to your binging. restrict, 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 lands face first into the cheesecake. Most are not fasting because it suits them or the pros of fasting. They're fasting because they're desperate to see results. Fasting can be extremely challenging to create a lifestyle out of, which leads me to point number 5, but I'm sorry, somebody has to say it. Fasting is an easy way out from educating yourself. And I'm about to stick my coaching hat on here, and I truly hope that you're in a space to receive this. And I mean this with all the love in my heart, but so many are allergic to accountability. I can tell you right now, the results that you are so freaking desperate for are found in the calories you refuse to track, the weights you refuse to lift, and the protein you refuse to eat, meaning they are not found in the magical windows of which you eat your food. And most have a severe avoidance to tracking their food because they think it's obsessive. But I'm gonna challenge you here. Would you ever walk up to your girlfriend who's budgeting her bank account and tell her it's obsessive? No. Tracking is no different. It's simply a budget that gives me massive freedom. I eat dessert every single day of my life and still have a body that I love. And I would highly encourage you to start viewing tracking as a space of addition instead of a space of subtraction, meaning what can I add to my day to see results? Tracking ensures that you're eating enough of those things to see the results. And on the flip side of that, tracking allows you to eat a donut every single day of your life if the donut is what does it for you and still see results. And if I hear one more person tell me that tracking is obsessive as they're on their 5th round of carnivore gnawing on a stick of butter, I'm gonna lose my motherfucking mind. So please do not be the person who is desperate for results but refuses to take the time to educate themselves. Tracking gives you freedom. End of story. But here's the thing, and I am a firm believer and I will die on this hill. We track for the short term, so we do not have to track for the long term. I don't want anybody, I mean absolutely anybody, attached to a food scale or a tracking app for the rest of their life. That is not a lifestyle, that is a motherfucking prison sentence. However, there is a time and space that every single person on this planet should track for a period of time. My goal for every single client on my team is intuitive eating. However, that right is earned, it's not given. You cannot expect somebody who has never tracked a day in their life to intuitively eat and think that that's going to work out well for them. Even if you're intuitively eating within magical windows, it's going to shoot you in the foot. Tracking gives you the education you need to be able to intuitively eat. There's no other way around it. Which leads me into point number 6. Yes, fasting works if you're in a calorie deficit, but also a calorie deficit works without fasting. It can be a tool in the toolbox, but it does not take away from the fact that you still have to master the basics, the non-negotiables. We have 6 of them on my team. You master these 6 things, you will never, ever, ever struggle with fat loss again. Calories, protein, sleep, water, steps, strength training. Master them. Coming from the girl who's now helped thousands of women lose the weight, rid the belly, keep it off, and build banging bodies that they feel damn good and naked, however you want to slice it and dice it, a calorie deficit, eating enough protein will always drive the show. Mastering the 6 non-negotiables will make achieving a calorie deficit 10 times easier and also enable you to sustain and maintain said results. Because I can promise you, the goal isn't to just lose the weight. The goal is to lose the weight and actually keep it off. At the end of the day, you need a strategy that is custom to you, that supports your body, your goals, your metabolism. You need to understand how to train in a way that supports those goals while we optimize metabolic, hormonal, and biofeedback markers. And as mentioned, coming from the girl who's now helped thousands of women do this shit works every single time when implemented correctly. Correctly here is the key word. So if implemented correctly, fasting can be a helpful tool in your toolbox, but if you do it wrong, it can fuck weight loss. And to learn about the other 21 behaviors that fuck weight loss, watch this video below.